Hello, and welcome to the Shadow and Soul Storytime podcast. I'm your host, Rayneen, and the intention of the show is very much to share the lessons and the medicine that live in our everyday experiences. In today's episode, I had the absolute honor and privilege of being joined by one of my dearest soul friends, Yvonne Cropp. And the conversation mostly revolves around sovereignty. I gotta say that this is a very, very juicy episode that I am so excited for you to dive into, from simple and mundane stories and experiences to bigger universal truths to tangible ways of resourcing yourself so that you can more regularly live from a place of standing in your sovereignty. There's just so much here. And so, my invitation to you is, as best you can, to take a moment to really breathe yourself into your body so that all of you is able to receive whatever it is that's meant for you. And so, without further ado, let's dive in.
Right. So I'm so excited to have you here. And I'm really grateful for your being here, not only to share yourself and your stories and your lessons and your medicine and all that good stuff, but genuinely, truly for helping me bring this vision to life and so many other visions that you've helped me bring to life. So this is, I feel like it's such a multifaceted relationship. I could say my teacher, my healer, my soul sister, my friend, so many things. I met Yvonne in 2015 through my yoga teacher training. And I remember probably the very first class I took with her that I was like, hell yeah, who is this chick? And the thing that I loved, well, as I'm sure most of you listening know, like I love anything that is like kind of like dark in nature. I don't mean like dark in a bad way, but I just remember her, like all of her jewelry and just her style. And even in a yin class, like she would swear a lot. Like there was just so much. I was like, this is just so different and so beautiful. And for me, it was at a time in my life where my biggest struggle was feeling like I wanted to be myself, but I was really afraid to be myself. And I think the thing in Yvonne that most attracted me to her was this sense of authenticity and boldness. And I don't know, I just was like a moth to a light. I was always been attracted to her. And then that relationship developed over the years. And I think where it really picked up speed was in 2018. I was at that time had been struggling with what I would definitely call chronic pain. It had been at least 4 years of this really intense pain I was having, like in my upper back and my neck. And every few months or so, it would flare up and be to a point where I was literally couldn't move. I was just like seized up. But it was spacious enough, right? Like every 6 months, every 8 months that it would happen, and it wouldn't be a big deal. I'm not a super huge fan of going to the doctor or anything like that. But by the time that I think it was like late summer, maybe early fall of 2018, it had gotten to a point where it was no longer spaced out. It was every month going on what was feeling like consistent, like there was no break in pain. And I had this moment when I was in my practice. I was trying to meditate and I couldn't because it just hurt so much, just constant pain. And I had this flashback to a teacher that was talking about physical pain manifesting from emotional pain. And in that moment, I was like, holy smokes, like, what if this is more than just physical pain? And so I reached out to several people for an acupuncturist recommendation. And I got the same person. And this person was booked out for months. And I was like, I cannot wait months. Like, I need help now. And Yvonne was one of those people that I reached out to. And I'm so grateful that she invited me to come try color puncture which she's a facilitator of. And I was like, I will literally try anything at this point. Like, try anything. And I'm not kidding at all when I say that since then, so 2018, what was a chronic pain, I have not had one flare up like that since. Like, genuinely, truly have not had a flare up where it's like taken me out and I cannot move, which is such a miracle. And I think is such a testament to her as a healer and a guide, because it's so much more than just the healing of the physical. And I'm just so grateful, because from there, just our relationship continued to intensify. And she's one of my very best friends now, and helped me bring to life the Shadow and Soul Lifestyle program, which literally would not have come through if she didn't co-create it with me. It was an even co-creation between me, her, and another dear friend, Cynthia. And yeah, just super, super grateful for her to be here and to share her with all of you. So with all that being said, I would love to give you a moment, Yvonne, if there's anything you feel to share with our listeners, just to give a greater feel into who you are. Which I know is a really loaded question.
Yes, thank you. That is a great reminder, because the more that I do this work, the more I realize that our physical pain comes from emotional aspects that we haven't looked at, or that we have looked at and have decided it's not important. And I'm just grateful that I have had so many experiences along the way that have shown that to me. Because we do live in a physical world, and we have this body that is our vessel that we carry around with us. And if we're not comfortable in it, nothing else can really shine, because it, like you're saying in that meditation where it grabs your attention, that's how I feel like the physical body is pointing to a deeper conversation that's more emotional and psychological. And so when you're willing to ask the question of why is this here, as we do in everything that we do, then that's where the magic happens. Yeah. And I'm super grateful for our friendship, for our sisterhood, for our co-creation. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
So, I'll have you take a moment to close your eyes and just kind of feel into yourself, and let this question guide where we go next. And it's really just this question of, where does our story today begin?
Our story begins with the continuation of who is our teacher? What is our teacher? And I know a lot of people will say life is our teacher, but life brings us so many different opportunities, whether it's an animal, whether it's a garden, whether it's a person, whether it's, a class, a workshop, and the value that we assign to that. I say this a lot, like, our sovereignty is the only thing that we have that we can stand with and share with others. And so when you talk about the way that I show up, like, I've always felt like the black sheep, like whether it was with my family or with my friends. And I think that has always pointed me to standing in my sovereignty and being brave enough to be the silly one, or the one who cusses in a yoga class, or the one who cusses in church. Or what's really interesting is that I don't cuss when I'm hurt. I only cuss when my soul is moving through me. Like, she's very feisty. So that's part of our sovereign expression, and being willing to be in alignment with that, and to not, don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that I don't worry about, I don't want to use the word worry. It's not that I don't think about or care what others think of me, but I want them to think of it as a permission to own their own sovereignty, how that shows up. And so I feel like a lot of the work that I do in this world, whether it's how I show up or through my actual work, is to allow people to be okay with that expression. Yeah.
I think you do a really good job of that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you.
welcome. So, what is it that this theme around teacher that has been most teaching you lately?
So I was thinking of this morning when so it came in, I mean, it's a pervasive in everything that I do. Um, I don't like being called a healer because I prefer facilitator or guide or coach, or I don't know. I was looking up synonyms for that the other day, because God is the healer. I'm just the channel that's allowing that to happen. And so in color puncture, the creator of color puncture, his name is Peter Mandel. And what Peter says is, we're creating an impulse to the body, to the soul, to the spirit, to allow that healing to happen. But I'm not actually doing it. God, goddess is doing it. And that applies to everything, whether it's an apple, whether it's a walk, whether it's a workout. So how do we allow that to show up and to say, oh, this is medicine for me, or this is not medicine for me? So the conversation around the guru, the teacher, is, are they inviting me to own my sovereignty, or are they taking my power away and telling me that what I think is sovereign isn't sovereign? And I know people ask me this, like, what is sovereignty? Sovereignty is when you have this deep knowing that it fits. Like, if there's a puzzle and you try to put that puzzle in and it just snaps in, that doesn't mean it's comfortable, right? It might take a little like nudging to get it in, but like there's this bubbling up, like, of a feeling, of emotion, of it's just a knowing. There's just this knowing. Like, you might hear something, and you're like, or you're drawn to it, like you said, a moth drawn to a flame, or a bee that goes to the flower and knows, like, oh, there's medicine here for me. But he might go to the same flower and be like, no, and you'll see them fly away. That's when I'm speaking of sovereignty. I think that's a lay person's way of explaining that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that.
So when I think of a teacher, well, anyway, back to this morning when I was walking, I was thinking about this. I've had a lot of opportunities to sit with and have sat with gurus, self-proclaimed gurus. And I was willing to bow at their feet and to listen to what they said and to do what they said without question. To the degree that at some point in my life, I literally went to a guru and said, I want to embrace the guru mentality. I will do whatever it is that you tell me to do. And thank God I was denied that opportunity. At the time, it really, really hurt. But in afterwards, I can see that my first guru was my mother. And it makes me sad when I think about it, but I'm grateful for that opportunity, because as a child, I believed that she had my best interest at heart, so I gave her my power. My mother didn't teach me how to listen to my sovereignty. She would tell me, and as a child, and even as a teenager and adult, before she died, I I willingly said, "Oh, she must know best, therefore I will wear red, or I will eat peanut butter and jelly." So when I trace it back, like, God gave me that first introduction as a child, but there was also still this inner knowing. And what would happen is I would see my brother question that, and I would see all the conflict that it created. And I didn't want to be part of that. So I chose to say yes. So I became a yes person. So fast forward to my 20s, when I was presented the opportunity you know, God was like, no, you've already studied with the guru. You know what that feels like. So then the rest of my trajectory was spent learning to find my sovereignty. And it was by being around people with a very strong fortitude of knowing, but not necessarily teaching you how to find that within yourself. So I feel like that's my work. It's my honor and my privilege to do that with people now, whether it's my lover, my best friend, you know, my clients, people that I meet, you know, on the street, the road, my path of life. So I think that's the larger conversation of how we're taught, you know, through our experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Super beautiful. I wanted to take a moment to let that land. I love that you were able to see your relationship with your mother as that guru type relationship of basically like allowing them to have your power to be like totally guided. And it sounds like you're taking your power back, finding sovereignty was pretty much a self-led journey of like not having other people tell you how to do that, but learning through experiences. Are there any experiences that come to mind that like really felt like, whoa, like helped you see that, feel that, realize that in like a big way? Because I know it happens in spirals. And I also know that sometimes there can be events and circumstances that really stand out as like a big turn.
Yeah. So back to the wearing red. I remember my mom used to have color me beautiful parties. And I don't know if you remember any of that, but literally they would come into the house and they would have all these color swatches and they would put colors on you and then tell you winter, spring, summer, fall, and what color was good for you. So with that construct, that's how we would shop. And mom would say, this is your color. And I would say, okay. So growing up, I don't remember picking out, I mean, I picked out my clothes. Don't get me wrong. I wasn't like a robot. This is the deeper, like, because I have a lot of Scorpios. So it's like, what's in the shadow of this, right? So fast forward to many, many years. She died when I was 17. So many, many years of shopping with my aunt, then kind of took over my role, my mom's role for me, for in my spiritual evolution. And she would show me clothes and I would go, I don't know. So when I started dating Marcus and we would go shopping, I would ask him how this looks. And he goes, baby, you're the one wearing it. Like, how does it feel? How does it look on you? Like, what, like, he started to show me and teach me the questions of how to decide because I had never been given that inquiry. That was like a huge epiphany. And it wasn't that I was dressing for others, but I wasn't necessarily dressing for myself because I hadn't been taught how to decide or how to have that, oh, how does this feel on my skin? Or what is it? How does it make my face look? Or how does it make my arms look or my butt or whatever the conversation about the clothes? But it was it was crazy. I'm like a 50-year-old woman that was like, what do you mean? How does this feel on me? Like, what do you mean? How does this look? It was really wild. Yeah, I was like, okay. So that's really tiny, but think about how much time we spend figuring out what we want to wear. And I had other aspects that I knew how to, like you spoke about jewelry, like I've always kind of had a taste for that I didn't ever let anyone override my inner impulse. But clothes, that was a really big one. Seems simple, but that was a teacher for me.
No, I love that. And I mean, you know this, I love when we can find those really big potent lessons in what is seemingly simple and mundane,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
just such a parallel.
Yeah.
Let me see. Are there any, the question that's coming up is, are there any, like, what has been happening for you recently that has this stirring this conversation inside of you?
Well, I think that we live in a world where I called the time of 2020 up until now as the truth serum. We've been bombarded with so much information, and it's really hard to discern what is true, what is the truth. One media outlet might say one thing, another media outlet might say another thing. One um, spiritual teacher might say one thing, another spiritual teacher might say something different. And that's where we really have to tap into our own sovereignty to say that lands for me. It doesn't have to land for you. It doesn't have to land for my partner. But where do I find that like inner knowing that that's something that I vibrate, resonate with? Because if we are not acting from that place, then we're all just being robotic and following a conversation that may or may not be true. But if you can't stand in your sovereignty and say why, and sometimes the truth is just feel it. It's hard to explain. And sometimes you literally have like we've been taught 2 + 2 = 4. So until there's other data that comes out that says, hey, we were wrong, actually 2 + 2 = 5, and let me show you how I got there, then we all agree 2 + 2 = 4. And we're like, yes. And there's this agreement and understanding. And I feel like we've come into this world now where there's so much bombarding of information that we really have to hone in on that that inner knowing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would absolutely agree. And I think what's challenging about that is, at least for me, as I've been on my journey of figuring out what is sovereign for me, how do I take back my power, there can be a lot of fears in the way of standing in your sovereignty. Like a lot of fears, and for good reason, for really
Yeah.
good reason. Um, does anything come up for you in terms of fears or resistances, and maybe how you navigated those situations so you could stand firm in your sovereignty?
So I believe that life is our teacher and that we learn by contrast. And let's just take one small segment of that as it relates to my offering in the world at this point in my life through color puncture, which is it is not energy work, but it is what people call alternative or complementary. Peter calls it esogetic medicine. And it is actually changing the conversation of the cells, but we're not taking medicine in this particular conversation. It's not about taking in things and like it is a contrast to Western medicine where they're looking and scanning and treating symptoms instead of looking at the larger underlying background of what caused it, just like Gabor Mate speaks of. These traumas that we hold in our body, you can't see that under an ultrasound or a CAT scan. And so I really do believe that the medical system is changing. And so these other therapies get to become part of the conversation. But in order for them to be potent, we have to own our sovereignty and know when I want to say who to put our trust in but it's not even that, because ultimately our trust is with ourself and with God. And then God can show us, Goddess can show us, okay, this is a practitioner who I understand their they're allowing me to stand in my sovereignty and allowing me to share what's happening and looking at it from a larger perspective. And sometimes it means that we do need to go have a CAT scan, and sometimes it means we need to look at the wound of the mother, right? In my instance, like, okay, well, where did you learn that? Where did you learn? But in order for me to now understand what sovereignty feels like, I had to have that experience on the other hand of when I gave it away. And so this, I feel like we're kind of moving in this larger picture of the white coat syndrome. And I don't just necessarily mean a doctor. I mean anybody that would say, they're saying, "Oh, you have a bellyache. Oh, take this pill." Instead of saying, "Well, do you know when it started, or have you tracked like when it occurs? Is it every time that you see a text from your boss, or is it every time you're getting in your car to go pick up your child from school?" Or like, again, it comes back to, who are you giving your power to? And can you know, like, the body's giving us little insights into like something's awry here. Are we, can we pause? Can we slow down? Can we track enough to be able to notice that? Instead of just saying, "I'm so uncomfortable, I just need something to fix it." Um, because it isn't always that easy. And sometimes it's super easy. You're like, "Oh my gosh, yeah, every day at 3 o'clock I get a stomach ache, and I have a call every day at 3:45." So
Yeah.
where have you laid your power down to what you have deemed an authority in any regard?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a super intense question. And I think if people were to actually sit with it, we would be probably kind of surprised at how much power we're giving away, whether it's to people, authority, or circumstances and situations and wounds. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is that as we talk about a lot, and because I believe that life is a teaching by contrast, sometimes we have to go through those situations where, I sat in front of this woman who I literally bowed to her and said, "I want to be your student." I was willing to do exactly as I was told. Um, how do we get to that place? I believe I was also brought there for a reason, to know what that felt like, so that then when someone says, "Hey, I think that you should wear this purple velvet jacket," then I get to pause and say, "Wow, thank you so much for seeing me and seeing that that color would look good on me, or that you see the way that I dress and you think that this would complement my wardrobe," versus, "Oh, well, you must know me better than myself. So, okay, thank you." And it's tight and it's constricting and I don't feel good, but I allowed someone else to say to me, and I'm making that very simple, but it's no different than a doctor going, "Oh, you have a toothache? Oh, well, then let's pull the tooth." And you going, "Okay, you're the doctor, you know best, so then I guess I have to pull my tooth." And believe I just really believe that we're in a very potent time right now where we're getting to see, like, do I resonate with that? Does that feel right with me? Am I willing to go through that experience because we're in collaboration with each other, and the best solution is, "Yes, I think you're right. I think I do need to have this tooth pulled." Not because you told me, but you presented an idea that when I sit with it, like, yes, that lands well. Do you see the difference? Does that make sense?
Yeah. And also what comes up as you're saying this for me is it's like we as individuals have a responsibility to look at where we are potentially giving away our power, where we're not standing in our sovereignty. And on the other side of the coin, I also feel like we also have a responsibility to look at where we are taking away the power of others by
Yeah.
not giving them that very, like, here's just an option, like, here's just a choice, like, what does that look like to you? What does that feel like to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But see, on the other side of that, so take it to the other side where we're so dug in, we're like, no, fuck you. You can't tell me what to do. And we don't take in any other information or advice or perspectives, then that's the shadow side of it as well, is that to be willing to be taught, to be willing to learn, because this
Yeah.
life that we're living in, this body is a playground to some degree, right? So my new favorite saying, I've been saying this for a while, but my new favorite saying right now is that something I'm willing to experience? Not like no, but uh, I wouldn't choose that, but I'm willing to experience that. And then because if you don't, how do you know if you like chocolate if you've never had vanilla?
Yeah. Something else that's coming up, and I think this would, and I would love more words around it if they come up for you, but kind of on the, I guess it would also be like the shadow side of like taking away, like actively, like kind of taking away someone's power is a more subtle way of doing that. And you are actually instrumental for me in this realization. And it was asking people, like if there was something I was like wanting or thinking about, that I was not only denying myself, but I was also denying them by not asking the question, because they can be in their sovereignty and they can say no, and that's totally
Mhm.
okay. That's perfect. But if I don't ask, I don't even give them the opportunity to say no. And I don't give myself the opportunity for them to possibly say yes either. So I really like that, because there's
Yeah.
been many times where I have an idea or I have like a wondering, or and it's like, no, I don't want to ask. I don't want to whatever. And it's like, I kind of hear you, because it's like, but you're just denying the opportunity for someone to stand in their sovereignty, to make a choice.
Right. I had this so my love bug, his love language is gifts. And so he buys me things that I don't ask for. And he bought this new contraption for our fruit bowls, and it's kind of big, it's bulky, but it has a lid that snaps, because sometimes the lid doesn't go on, and so when I carry it home, like, it could fall open or whatever, and he's had one of his drop. So in his mind, this was a great option for us. And so, anyway, I washed it. It was just kind of bulky and I didn't really love it, but I'm like, okay, he bought this. It was a very kind gesture, all the things. Well, I get home and I'm washing it again. I'm trying to eat out of it. And I just don't. So I texted him. I'm like, all right, I got to be honest with you. I don't love this bowl. And so I'm learning to be brave inside of that relationship to say, I really appreciate you thinking of me. I'm not sure if this is exactly what I need or want, or it's not serving this purpose, or, um, and he's had to learn to not take it personally. And he got to say, well, I hear you. I agree. It's not this, this, and this, but this is what we bought it for. And it's this and this. And so I said, true point. So if you hadn't bought it, one, I didn't get to practice like being brave and saying, this isn't actually great. And I don't know how I said it. I said it really funny. I was like, I have to admit, I'm not really loving this bowl. And to that point, like, if you don't, to your point, if you don't offer it or give another option that maybe the other person hadn't thought about, you're denying them, one, the ability to see outside of their own box, and two, just a different way of seeing it, and to learn how to be brave and say, I don't think that that's going to work, but that maybe it's a variation of the two or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We talk about that a lot, about like standing in your sovereignty is about being brave. It really is. Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of like the next thing that's like floating around, and in some ways it feels like, okay, like this is like a turn for like what could slightly be uncomfortable. And because I start to think of myself and in some of these situations where being brave, although when I look back in the times when I've been brave and it's quote unquote gone wrong, I wouldn't change it because it had so many lessons that, again, like, you know, we come here for things to experience, and contrast is one of the greatest teachers, and just all of the things that unfold. I think what I'm like feeling into and wondering is for those listening, when they think about all the ways that they could stand in their sovereignty or all the ways that they could be brave, and they're kind of met with that, like, oh, well, the last time I was brave, or the last time I tried to stand in my sovereignty, this happened. And I'm curious if you have any words of wisdom around that kind of situation, because I know that there can be a lot of people who like see that fear, feel that fear, and they're like, actually, no, right? Because it's almost like the nervous system. That's what it's designed to do. It's like, actually, that's a pass. That's a hard pass for me.
Right.
So any tips on I heard someone say this on Instagram. I loved it. It was like calling fears bluff is the way that he put it. And so I'm just wondering, like, what do you have any tips in terms of how do you resource the nervous system, or how do you look at it from a different angle so that you can call fears bluff and that you can step forward into being brave, trusting whatever happens is also okay, even if you're met with discomfort or something that you would prefer to not experience. How do you develop that kind of trust and capacity to resource yourself and do those things?
That's a great question. And what I have learned in working with many people inside of that conversation is some people are not willing to experience that. So part of it is just knowing how far to nudge that, and knowing that some people just want to coast and just go along to get along. That was when I was, so one of the practices, one of the treatment protocols in color puncture is called the transmitters, which you've been through. And it unhinged a deep conversation of, you know, what Peter says is what we experience in the first 25 years of our life. If we don't clear it, it just continues to repeat. And what my story that was uncovered in that conversation was go along to get along, which is what I did in my family of origin. And so I wasn't brave to say, I don't want to wear red today, Mom. I'd prefer to wear purple, because I wasn't willing to upset the apple cart. I wasn't willing to be yelled at. I wasn't willing for whatever could have happened. I wasn't willing to experience that at that point in my life. And I know what that felt like. So then take that into my adult life as I'm learning that conversation. The way that I've resourced myself is by working in what I now understand is the prefrontal cortex. And that's what I call the wise adult self, which there is fear inside of that, but fear is appropriate. Like if you don't have that little nudge of fear, that if you're getting ready to be brave and you don't have that nudge of fear, then I'm not sure if that's your sovereignty. That could be an anger response, or that could be, you hurt me, so I'm going to hurt you, instead of saying, you're allowed to be angry, but you're not allowed to be an asshole. You're allowed to be sad, but you're not allowed to blame me. That's different. That's standing in your sovereignty versus like, oh, you hurt me, then I'm going to hurt you. Or, I know what this feels like when I speak up and say, I don't want to wear red, but I'm willing to do that because I want to see what that feels like as I learn to say, I don't think I want to wear red. And it is scary. And the first few times we are brave and we do it, it's, if you don't have a tribe of people that can kind of help you say, oh no, you're doing it perfectly. Of course it's uncomfortable. Like, keep going. you have to keep building that the prefrontal cortex, because the amygdala and the hippocampus are going to keep us locked in. Nope, I have to stay small. I have to stay inside of this box because that's where I'm safe. And what I've learned is this open-hearted, we're always loved and supported by God, goddess, then that's where our love comes from. It's not from the people that like tell us how to be stuck inside of this box. So yes, we are here to have this experience. So, for me, listening to music, dancing, moving my body, lip trills, shaking, like all the things, like that's like, okay. And then you can come back to the response and say, no, I was pretty solid in that. Like, I feel like that came from my inner knowing versus like I was just responding because you stung me and I was just stinging you back. That's limbic. And everyone has, some people have to be still. For me, I need to move and dissipate and like just kind of like, as you always say, like shake off the cobwebs and be like, okay, do I still not want to wear red? Yeah. Am I willing to wear this tight purple jacket that someone thought I would enjoy? Yeah. That's does does that make sense? Did I explain that and
Hmm.
answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What it brings up for me personally, especially along these lines of kind of like, what is your edge of discomfort that you're willing to experience? Um, Probably one of the greatest sources of anxiety and stress in my life, as you know, is my sweet fur baby Juju. And he's very reactive on walks, and it's gotten to the point where I don't even want to take him. I don't even want to go. It's just too much anxiety for me because for whatever reasons, my own anxiety, like feeling his anxiety, feeling the anxiety of people that were passing, they're like, oh my god, monster, like it can be overwhelming. We started to work with a trainer, and she's been amazing. She's like, okay, well, why don't you let Kelton walk Juju? And then you can just like focus on you, and like you're just feeling like you're just getting to experience like, okay, and while also like removing yourself just a little bit, right? And we were walking in our neighborhood just a couple weeks ago, and Kelton was walking him, and we started to walk down the street, and I could hear a bunch of kids like at the corner, and my inside was just like, and I told him, I was like, actually, can we turn around? Like, I'm actually not willing to
Mhm.
experience that right now. Like that this is my edge. Like,
Yeah.
and I think a part of me, like an old part of me would have been like judgmental of that, of like you can't handle it, or you whatever side voices. But this other part of me was like, this is okay. Like, this is your edge. Like, we can come and we can push against our edge. And it's like the sovereignty piece. Like, I chose, like, okay, I have a choice here. Like, do we continue to go down this path? How much am I willing to experience? Or can I be brave and speak up and say, actually? And it's like, I think part of me, like I said, an old version would have seen that as not brave, but in being able to speak, like, actually, this is my limit. That was being brave. And then it's like, okay, we can just turn around now and try again another day.
Yeah.
But I think it was a good teaching moment for me, because it was like, okay, this is my edge. And that was my edge on that day. And, my edge may be
Mhm.
different on a different day. Just tuning in to, again, like, what am I willing to experience? What am I not willing to experience? And yeah, so I just love that.
That's so beautiful. Like, I love that. I'm proud of you for that.
Thanks.
Because some people think that being brave means that we suck it up and we go along, which sometimes that is being brave. But in that moment, you recognized, for me, because let's play it forward. If you had gone down that road and you would have had more anxiety on top of it, you would have had to double down on dispersing that later, which might have created an argument, which you might have gotten mad at Juju. You might have been like, why can't these kids be inside? Which you have no control over. All you have control over is your reaction to your response, your reaction to what's happening. And you were like, okay. No different than eating a great meal, right? And sometimes we take that last bite and we're like, oh my God, I wish I hadn't had that last bite. But then next time you can choose differently. And that's how we start to build our resilience. That's how we become brave. And that's how we learn. Like, okay, the last time I did that, I had to go down, lay down and take a nap because I was exhausted because it was too much for me. Or say, we'll go halfway down the street and I'll just see if it gets better or worse. But some people, this is where I feel like there's that edge, because some people in that instance, being brave, would have said, I'm okay. Kelton's walking the dog. I'm still managing my nervous system and I want to see how far I can go. But in that moment, your sovereignty said, I'm at my edge. Can we
Mhm.
turn around and go home?
Yes.
So you can't ever say it's always the same. That's life is dynamic. That's where we get to call in the PFC and say, okay. And that's why I love this new mantra. Like, what am I willing to experience? Yeah.
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 Yeah. It for what's coming up now is, and I don't even, it's funny. It's like, I actually have never really worked in an office type setting, but what's coming up for now is like people who feel to set boundaries and have uncomfortable conversations, whether it's with a boss or a coworker or whatever situation. What's coming up is almost like a pendulum swing. Like sometimes when we're learning to be brave,
Mhm.
it can come out like really like intense, which is great.
Yeah.
That needs to come out however it needs to come out. Um, I'm wondering if you have any thoughts or words around what I guess is maybe like a distortion, right? It's almost like things can come out distorted when we're learning, when we're practicing, because it's like we're learning how to put our foot down, but really it's like this hard like stomp.
Yeah.
So there's that piece of it, but then there's this other piece of it too, where, and I think they're kind of related, where sometimes you feel like when you realize that this is something that would serve you, it's like, I need to do it and I need to do it big and I need to do it now. And maybe that might be true, right? That could totally maybe be true. What also could possibly be true is, right, like it's okay to take small steps. It's okay to have small
Yeah.
conversations. Um, yeah.
But I think you're right. It is a pendulum. And I think one of the women that I studied with that teaches neuro retraining, neuro repatterning, she says if you watch a 2-year-old, they're in their PFC because their limbic brain hasn't developed as much. And so, they do stomp their foot. They're like, no, I don't wanna, they do, they're literally learning what happens when I do that. But that again, if you come back to it, that's teaching by contrast. So one, you have the experience of what does it feel like if I don't put my foot down? Everybody walks all over me, maybe. If I do put my foot down, everyone thinks I'm a bitch. Okay. Is there a happy medium? And sometimes we need to go along, and sometimes we need to put our foot down, and sometimes we need to say, I wouldn't do it that way, but if that's what you want to do, I'm willing to do that with you. That's kind of the halfway mark. But we have to have those experiences because otherwise we don't know. But there's a lot of people that aren't willing to have this large pendulum swing. They just want steady state, right? And so then I guess like you're saying, if you have given the invitation a few times and you see that they don't pick it up, you're like, okay, I see that you want to stay steady state. We won't go into that conversation.
Yeah.
That's where we have to kind of also touch it because you don't want to keep pushing it. Do you know what I mean? Because then
Mhm.
you're the one that's suffering.
Yeah.
That we're only responsible for that for ourselves. Like I always say, we have to keep our inside of the street clean. That's all we can ever do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely part of what was coming up for me while you're sharing this last bit is like, what does most serve?
Yeah.
And it could look so different on every person, right? Like
Yeah.
this one way of doing it could be so perfect for this person, and that could be so not perfect for someone else. And on any given day too.
Yeah. any given day, any given moment, like I felt amazing yesterday. I slept great and I was like just dancing and making all the things. And today I didn't sleep one single second last night. And I woke up this morning thinking, it's different. Everything's different. I mean, I still feel great, but I mean, I get really sad when I don't sleep. And that's something that I struggle with. So if what I might have been willing to experience yesterday, I might have a different appetite for today because there are some of my resources that aren't as full as they were yesterday. So
Yeah.
if you look at every single person from that perspective, like you're saying, one day it might be okay to say, well, have you considered this? On another day, you might notice, oh, they're a little under resourced. I don't think that this is a good time to bring up that conversation.
Yeah.
So being in our sovereignty also means that we have awareness of where other people are walking their life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a question that's like sitting inside of me, but before I go to that question, I just want to ask, is there anything that's bubbling up for you?
That feels pretty complete.
Okay. So this question I have is for like day-to-day simple ways of resourcing ourselves, right? Because look at you and I'm like, oh man, this is like the expert in this for me. Resourcing ourselves and tending to the nervous system, the prefrontal cortex, because I know that, and obviously you know that color puncture is an amazing way of doing that. And what are some, do you feel to share any simple, easy things that people could do at home? Because I think if I'm like taking a big step back and looking at like, okay, when I'm trying to be sovereign and when I'm trying to navigate the world in that way, I just know that that is just so not even possible or available if like this is not well, if this is not, like, it just can't, like, it just absolutely, it's just
Right.
not, it's not even available to us.
Mm-mm.
And so I'm wondering, yeah, if there's just anything that you want to share with the listeners, if they're like in need of some tools to resource themselves, because we could take in mind food all day, but what are some like tangible things we can actually do to help the foundation of what it is to be sovereign and to be brave?
So for me, the easiest ones, I'm all about hacking anything that integrates into our already busy life. So, when I hear people say to go sit for 30 minutes or to go do something, to go do anything, that for me is a like, I have to add one more thing to my schedule. So lip trills, super easy. Humming, singing, putting on a piece of music and dancing around the house, listening to it while you're in the shower. Like I'm all about integrating into what we're already doing because then it's already accessible. And there's times where I really enjoy listening to podcasts or I'll listen to audiobooks because I enjoy getting immersed in the story, and that takes me out of my ego mind spinning like all the things I have to do or maybe replaying a conversation. So whatever you can do to break that circuit. So for me, like that's one way. I love taking baths. I love being immersed in the water, or I have recently started swimming last year. So like being in the water and just like being in a rhythmic movement, walking, anything that's like kind of steady state that kind of creates a rhythm. Um, but like just literally standing there and shaking or bouncing or just moving your body. And think about this as a child. Like, how many children like to be rocked back and forth? Or we all had that swing that like went back and forth. Like anything that's rhythmic. For me, what I feel like my experience of that is it's resetting our natural circadian rhythm, which is always at peace. Like it's the alpha wave, it's the relaxed awareness. It's like, okay, a bug could land on you and you're like, I really don't want you there, versus like this
Mm.
beta, like when we're in this high beta state where we're always doing like everything is reactionary. So anything that we can do to kind of bring us back to that like middle path, that relaxed awareness, some people find that through meditation or like through prayer and reading and devotionals. There's nothing wrong with any of that. I have just found that, and I've seen this over and over with clients and friends, that if you have to add one more thing, there's this like, there's literally like this sigh of like, seriously, did you not just hear me tell you what, So all of those things you can do in the car, you can do in the shower, you can do while you're cooking, you can do while you're walking. Um, Now, you might kind of look funny if you're like walking and all of a sudden you just start shaking, but it works. So, go to the bathroom and do it. I worked in corporate America for 17 years and I literally would find myself overwhelmed and go to the bathroom, in a stall, put my feet up on the toilet and literally do breathing. Like, it's like sometimes you just got to do that.
I love that. And I have, out of all of those things, which all of them are so beautiful, I have been super obsessed with lip trills since you told me as that. Like it just feels good. Just a couple seconds
It
of it.
does.
Like, oh,
I
it
know.
just feels so soothing. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. But you see, the premise of that is literally, and that's why some people can't do it. Like they'll go, they literally can't relax their lips. But the premise of that, and because it relaxes the vagus nerve, which
Mm.
is that nerve that runs from the mouth all the way down to the coccyx, to the tailbone. Tongue trills, if you do, gets a little deeper. So if you have like any kind of digestion issues, then it gets a little deeper into the belly. The lip trills, literally, if a baby's lips aren't relaxed, it cannot receive nourishment by sucking
Mm.
on the nipple. Like it literally can't. So if you think of it from the actual very primordial, primitive state that we came into this world, that is the most simplistic and deepest release that we can have. So that one is really super important. And it easily will come after practicing for a little bit. Like it's just like you just relax,
Yeah.
which seems really hard. And for some people it is. We're in this tight gripping to think of a baby can't suckle and receive nourishment if its lips aren't relaxed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's another question. Because we're talking about like your words were around like finding like that middle path, right? Do you have any words to share for those who is all like the words that come up is like markers, tells, like signposts that people can start to bring some awareness to be like, oh snap, this is what it can look like or feel like to be in the limbic versus the PFC. Like for people to feel into like, oh snap, like that's what this means, and that
Yeah.
just common ones, I guess.
I think when we become very reactionary, that is definitely a tell. When we feel like if the like words like overwhelmed, fatigued, stressed out, like if you notice like you're reaching for something that you don't need, food is a big one. With you when you just want to eat something and you're not hungry, um if you just want to go lay down and like pull the covers over your head because you're overwhelmed, or if you've like had a reaction. Road rage is a really great example. When you're not able to say, instead of saying you asshole, instead of saying wow, I really hope you get to where you're going safely, bless you, you know when you can't come from that place of compassion, you're probably not in your PFC.
Yeah.
And it's a very PFC requires, it actually uses 25% of our brain capacity. It's very resource heavy. So we limbic is so much easier. Our limbic brain is our reptilian brain. It's just our like, oh, lizard crawling against the earth. Oh, something to eat. great, I'm going to eat it. Like something's coming at me. Okay, I have to run away. Like that's our limbic brain. And it's where our stories spin. Like every time I do this, blah, 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 like that's our limbic brain. So when we're not able to pause and say, what do I need right? Like what's going on? And sometimes it's literally like some lip trills or just shaking. And then we can kind of get back into like, okay, I'm not actually hungry. I'm really sad. Let me go sit down and like call back like what today happened or what happened yesterday that made me sad that I didn't process at the time that I need to now process. And then if you're hungry, great, go eat something, but it's this reactionary place that that's a big tell for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And also that need to like squirrel yourself away and just like crawl into the like I can't like that's a big tell too. Yeah.
What comes up you're saying this is, oh man, like so much of us, so much of the time are
Yeah.
in that place.
Yeah.
And I like
That's
this.
what I love about oh, go ahead.
No, 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 you go.
Well, I was just gonna say that's what I love about when people come and get color and I work on the PFC and I can literally watch them downregulate and they just get up and they're like, and I get to say to them, you can live in that place.
Yeah.
Like you have the ability to do that for yourself. Color enhances it and gives you a really quick way to get into it. And the more you do it, the more you can get back there and remember, oh, okay, everything is fine. It might not be comfortable, but everything is fine. And
Yeah.
now can I come from this place of responding versus reacting?
Yeah. Oh, such good work.
Yeah.
I think what it brings up is that in what you're saying about the PFC requiring you to be resourced to even like tap into it into the first place. So then it kind of brings up this whole other point, which we won't go down that hole because it's just too big of a conversation. But I think it's a good reminder that we really need to take care of ourselves on just the most basic level of
Yeah.
trying to get good sleep, eating good food, drinking water. What are our inputs from the people in our lives, our conversations, the media that we listen to, watch, whatever, like on a very baseline. That's why health is so important, because we live in this physical body.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the premise of, when I created the name Soul Vessel, like that was what had come up for me is because we are 3D beings having a spiritual experience, but we have this vessel that requires maintenance. And I always jokingly say, I have a Mercedes because my vessel's in the shop a lot. And some people have a Prius and they can just like kind of skate by and don't have to attend to it as much, but they all need maintenance. And it's our job as this advocate, as like our soul in this vessel, to decide and be willing to do what's necessary to take care of that vehicle. I saw this the other day and I really love it. What she was saying is, yes, because we're living in a 3D experience, even though we're 5D creatures, we are integrating, not ascending. So our work is to integrate and metabolize this so that we can ascend, but it's not just doing all the airy fairy like sit and meditate and that's fine, but we have to attend and be integrated and like let the medicine like become part of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have to live it. We have to embody it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Heck
Or not.
or not, true. Yes, true.
Yes.
Oh man, so beautiful. I think that's also a perfect segue, because you bringing up the soul vessels piece. For anyone who's listening, are there ways that you feel good about folks reaching out to you, and what does that look like, and anything that you share to feel around what you offer?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about color puncture is that it's an in-person
Yeah.
experience because the rods need to touch the skin. Like
Yeah.
we use words to communicate, our cells use light. So I'm literally touching the skin. But outside of that, outside of that, there's sound therapies, there's um all the ways that we've spoken about to resource yourself physically, emotionally, but my practice is actually one-on-one. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
anyone listening in the Raleigh area.
That's right. Or you can take a road trip down and come. I do have people that come from other cities, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah.
And if people want to follow along or just reach out with any, questions or anything like that, what are the ways that feel best for you to
Yeah, so
connect?
my website is soulvessels.com, and there's some really good information on there. There's a great interview with my teacher that kind of explains color puncture for people that want to know, like, what is color puncture. Um, my contact information is on there, so email, texting. Um, I have an Instagram page. I haven't updated it in a while, but there's some really great stuff on there too. I'm sure I'll get back to it at some point, but um, I like doing other things other than posting on social media.
Yeah.
I'm kind of an in-person kind of girl. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll make sure to put all of the information in the show notes.
Okay.
Are there any final words that you would like to share?
Hmm. I'm just grateful for our friendship, for our sisterhood, for our collaboration. I love playing in this playground of life. I really think it's magical. So thank you for the opportunity.
Oh my goodness, you're so welcome. Thank you. This has been
Yeah.
a beautiful conversation. I cannot wait to share it.
Yeah.
Let's
Thank you.
see. Yeah, I think, for those of you listening, if this resonated in any way, felt helpful, would love for you to leave a review, to leave a rating, subscribe so you can hear more of this magic. I'm sure this is just the first of many podcasts with this beautiful soul. So
Mm.
thank you for listening. Thank you, Yvonne, so much for being here. Really such a
Thank
gift.
you.
Yeah. And I guess we'll get to connect with you the next time we get to.
Yes. Thank you.
Mhm.